The strategies of the sugar industry are widespread but often invisible to the public eye. With its catchy slogans, aggressive marketing, and advertising, the sugar industry has ensured millions and millions consume their products, and the amount of sugar consumed per person each year has absolutely skyrocketed. But rather than getting canceled, the sugar industry found new ways to stay relevant. One of its genius tactics is to advertise claims of nutritious and healthy snacks. For example, Nestle falsely claimed that their Boost Kids essential drinks prevented upper respiratory tract infections in children, protected against cold and flu by strengthening the immune system, and that it reduced absences from daycare or schools due to illnesses. And likewise, Coca-Cola and McDonald's center their brands around happiness, and in some cases health, with their I'm lovin' it and open happiness sayings, with certain products being labeled natural, healthy, or organic. But the most unethical thing the sugar industry could have done was make children one of their major targets. Hello everyone, my name is Kim and welcome to the Green Lab Coach. If you found any value in what you viewed so far, make sure to give it a like to help the algorithm, and also don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification if you enjoy videos on the environment or on health backed by science. Let's get started. Food advertisements in schools have increased over the past 2 decades. This is particularly powerful as children are usually not in a position to scrutinize advertisements, and they are even less likely to do so in an environment that has perceived credibility like a school. But they're not just in the form of banners and posters, but branded educational material as well. Now, viral or buzz marketing are especially effective among children, and this is one way they get them. Video clips, games, and text messages are also big and spread through the consumer on social networks to increase brand awareness and sales. In this way, the company is using the consumer to do its job for them. But it doesn't stop there. Parents are always looking for healthy products that their kids will enjoy, and yogurt is a perfect example. Parents give their kids yogurt as an alternative to ice cream or other things alike. But by the time the sugar industry gets done with this product, it has around the same sugar as regular ice cream, yet markets it as giving kids energy or has calcium because of the milk. Also, viral marketing or anything seen on any social media or any social platform leaves parents in the dark. It's less regulated than traditional advertisement strategies and enables companies to hide from the criticism of their inaccurate and misleading health claims. Now, TikTok is a great example with its 30-second videos, but even more manipulative. Companies use children to market to their parents via pester power. Now, pester power is a children's repeated request for certain food products. Companies target children, knowing that they will catalyze pester power and in turn up their product sales. You have got to love the culture we live in. As far as the general target market, neuromarketing is another tactic that exploits human behavior and technology at the price of our health. By using clinical information to explain and influence what is happening in a consumer's brain, they know how to get in our wallets. Now, this phenomenon is what brought the discovery of brand communities, people whose personal identity includes their brand preferences. So basically, by exploiting the primal and human need to be a part of something, advertisers make us feel less lonely when using their products. While marketing and advertisements have been around for decades, the sophistication of these newer marketing techniques brought about a powerful ability to manipulate our behavior, social lives, and children. What is the most devastating thing is what happens to newborn babies. After studying 1,234 pregnant women and young kids, this observational study found that sugar had an impact on the child's cognitive skills and was likely to affect the unborn baby as well, whose pregnant mothers were consuming 49.8 grams per day. Specifically, nonverbal activities to solve problems and a verbal memory.
So this is your body eating.
Every cell in our body needs glucose to survive. But the trouble is, these cancer cells also use it to grow. He says by scanning hundreds of volunteers, he's learned that people who frequently drink sodas or eat ice cream or other sweet foods may be building up a tolerance, much like drug users do. As strange as it sounds, that means the more you eat, the less you feel the reward.
Now, I've done one other video on sugar and chronic disease. You can access that right here. And it's becoming more and more apparent how sugar-sweetened beverages are even more deadly than regular table sugar. Additionally, Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists spokesman Patrick O'Brien said babies exposed to huge amounts of sugar in the womb continue to make large amounts of insulin after birth. He said, quote, "A baby getting too much sugar is producing too much insulin. The minute it's born, effectively, it is cut off from its mother's sugar supply, but keeps on making insulin because its sugar levels are too low," unquote. Often, these babies have to be fed early or more often, and they are put on a drip and given glucose. Others also fed sugar through a tube that goes directly into their stomach. Now, utterly irresistible, undeniably attractive as possible, while also being convenient and low cost, is what they aim for, says Michael Moss, author of Salt, Sugar, Fat: How the Food Giants Hooked Us. Now, according to him, who spent time with the top scientists at the largest companies in the country, these companies rely on deep science to understand how we're attracted to food. Nestle had announced a new chocolate with a shape based on the geometry of the mouth that hits certain areas of the oral surface, improving the melt-in-mouth quality while simultaneously reserving enough space in the mouth for the aroma to enrich the sensorial experience. Moss goes on to say, "It's amazing how much energy, math, science, and regression analysis they put into finding the perfect amount of salt, sugar, and fat in their products that will send us over the moon and will send their products flying off the shelves and have us buy more, eat more, and make more money for them," unquote. Now, this twisted strategy brought along what some think of as a sugar addiction, as well as hyperpalatable foods. These are the foods that are to blame. Hyperpalatable foods give eaters a greater physiological and psychological reward than normal foods. Now, in scientific laboratories, the food is designed to keep people drooling over and become nearly addicted to the products. The reason I say nearly addicted is because, again, the word is controversial and many experts don't agree. However, according to the book, The Science of Weight Loss, hyperpalatable foods are specifically designed to enact a supernormal stimuli response in the brain through the release of dopamine. Now, when talking about supernormal stimuli, we're talking extreme versions of it according to this book, so it takes it to a maximum level. Now, these man-made foods flood our brains with dopamine, keep us constantly craving, eating, and many of the richest in this industry probably don't mind the overeating. Part of what keeps the sugar industry thriving is that hyperpalatable foods are high in cheap fats and sugar, and the government subsidizes corn, sugar, and soy production. The government literally spends $4 billion annually to keep farmers producing these things. What's sad is that decades of increased disease doesn't motivate our government to do better. Now, unlike other addictive products, the overconsumption of food doesn't have the same stigma as, say, cigarettes. In some ways, social norms, movies, culture, and relentless advertising have even celebrated the high intake of high sugar amounts, linking it to happiness and living your best life. Now, Bruce Bradley, a former industry executive who spent 15 years working for General Mills, Pillsbury, and Nabisco, said, quote, "Fullness or satiety is quite a serious enemy for the product," unquote. The bliss point is that sensory profile where you like the food the most. If too much sugar is added, it can be overbearing. But by getting it to the point right before that, where it still gets you hooked and wired and tastes delicious, the formula is complete. Now, Bradley says that companies make a concerted effort to make sure the food is really well blended, at least where he worked at. Other companies are opposed to blending, making you want for more and find that perfect bite. But one day, he discovered he couldn't do it anymore. He says, quote, "There were certainly times that I felt uncomfortable or troubled by what I was doing," he said. "I think that's ultimately one of the reasons why I left the industry. As you start to get glimpses of products and you understand better how consumers are using them, and then you see trends like obesity and health issues that are increasing, mainly driven by the food we eat, it was hard for me not to just take a more thorough assessment of what I was doing," unquote. Now, going back to Michael Moss, he says, out of salt, sugar, and fat, sugar is probably the most dangerous. Every one of our 10,000 taste buds in the mouth, esophagus, and stomach are ready for that sweet taste. Now, an army of chemists, physicists, and even neuroscientists are all working together to make sure that we as consumers want that second cookie. We can't blame companies for trying to figure out what a rational consumer would do in the marketplace. But once that stimuli sets in, that consumer is no longer rational. Now, the Sugar Research Foundation funded its first study in 1965, in which fat was blamed as the culprit for coronary heart disease rather than sugar. But fast forward to 2016 and historical documents published by JAMA, where Kristen Kearns of the University of California led the report, raised questions over the legitimacy of industry-funded scientific research. Now, sugar industry representatives apparently talked scientists into misrepresenting their research findings, and the document suggested that dietary guidelines over the past 50 years may have been based on skewed science. Early warnings of coronary heart disease by sugar consumption in the 1950s were apparently downplayed by the Sugar Research Foundation, and internal documents revealed that the agenda was definitely set by the sugar industry as far as what the outcome should be. And according to this brief published by Syracuse University, their strategies included advertising sugary products to children, adding sugar to everyday products that we don't think of as having sugar, like bread, granola bars, low-fat yogurt, and milk. Now, big food giant Coca-Cola was also included in these documents. It showed they gave millions and millions of dollars to scientists to downplay the role of sugary drinks in the obesity epidemic. The anti-obesity group therefore stated that there is, quote, virtually no compelling evidence, unquote, to suggest sugary drinks were linked with obesity. Also, the investigation brought to light how the US sugar industry had an influence on researchers looking at dental caries linked to sugar, which is loss of tooth substance. And the documents point to how sugar research in the 60s and 70s was heavily skewed overall. Now, surprisingly, or maybe unsurprisingly, the Sugar Association published a statement on its website saying, quote, we question the author's continued attempts to reframe historical occurrences to conveniently align with the currently trending anti-sugar narrative, particularly when the last several decades of research concluded that sugar does not have a unique role in heart disease. Most concerning is the growing use of headline-baiting articles to trump quality scientific research, unquote. Again, industry-funded research is not quality research.
Working for Coke 10 years ago, we had a strategy. Now, processed food companies contribute 11 times more money to nutritional research in the United States than the NIH. The medical system is not ringing an alarm bell about childhood diabetes, obesity. They're profiting from, right? We spend $250 billion on cancer. We spend over $1 trillion on diabetes care. The most prescribed drug in the country, 25% of the United States is on a mental health medication. All of the conditions I just mentioned are going up. As we're treating them, they're all getting worse.
So why does the government subsidize the sugar industry? It's simple. Food and beverage companies contribute millions and millions of dollars each election cycle to political action committees, lobbyists, and campaigns to encourage policymakers to pass laws that make them more money and prevent laws that would reduce their profits. Now, for those that don't know, there are laws in practice that prohibit corporations from donating directly to political candidates. They're then able to bypass this by donating to political action committees instead and having them donate that to the politicians. Additionally, corporations hire lobbyists to advocate for their food products to Congress. In 2020, the Democratic and Republican parties received roughly $828,300 and $876,700 from the food and beverage companies. Now, McDonald's, Starbucks, Chipotle, and Yum brands like KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell are some of the major corporations giving thousands of dollars to political campaigns. Dunkin' Donuts, Burger King, Popeyes, and Tim Hortons are more contributors, and this goes a long way to ensure they're always benefiting, even at the expense of American health. Now, remember, many of these chains don't remind you of sugar, but it sneaks its way into ketchup, mayonnaise, dips, and their sweet treats as well. And now, the sugar industry has been crafty, and they argue that any type of taxation or regulation is a danger to freedom of choice. and that people should be able to choose without interference from the government. Government interference, however, can be seen through its billions of dollars in subsidies to the US sugar growers every single year. And lastly, real freedom would mean simplifying the ingredients, letting them speak for themselves so we understand, and not being bombarded with false advertisements. When compared to European countries, our food system looks downright sad. Their regulations limit the amount of sugar that is allowed in foods, and they have a banned foods list comprised of artificial, processed, and unhealthy foods that are illegal to sell due to their negative health effects. The US food system, on the other hand, needs a lot of work. Nearly 3/4 of packaged foods sold in the US supermarkets include added sugar. The food labels are difficult to read, and many times, added sugars are left out of the label. Now, to top it all off, we are getting more sick and raising more and more obese kids. So what can we do as concerned citizens? As it goes, the more we purchase something, the more we fill their pockets. The first thing you want to do is eliminate sugary drinks. I don't need them, you don't need them, and your kids especially don't need them. And 2, for the most part, let that sweet satisfaction you intake be homemade. Even the most organic snacks and treats have hidden sugar, so learn to make these things in a healthier version and from home. And 3, dips, salad dressing, sauces, gotta go. You can definitely go without them. And as we always say, in the end, the choice is yours.